Welcome everyone to our DukeEngage General Info session for fall 2022. Today, we will be sharing a little bit more with you all about DukeEngage. My name is Aaron Krause. I'm a program coordinator with DukeEngage at the Keenan Institute for Ethics. And my colleague Kristen has joined me as well to share with you. I'll let her introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Kristen. I work as the Assistant Director of DukeEngage, and so I do a lot of working with faculty to help develop their DukeEngage programs, and also working through the application process and the registration process.
Absolutely. So we want our info sessions to really be informative and engaging for you all to learn just a little bit about how to apply to DukeEngage programs, what the application process entails. We want to give an opportunity for you all to hear from one of our guides, students, previous DukeEngage attendees, participants who completed a DukeEngage program. And we want you all to have a good idea walking away if DukeEngage is a good program for you. So that's what we'll be covering today's session.
So what is DukeEngage? Here's some buzzwords for you to think about. So DukeEngage students address critical issues, and by that we mean things like education or environment, or migration or health, in a way that is immersive, the second word there, meaning that students are living and working in a community for 8 weeks, really getting to know that community. So it's not from the perspective of a tourist, but as someone participating in the life of the community. It is collaborative because students are working with, we like to say, and not for local organizations who are partners of Duke University, many of them for several years. It's community driven in that the issues and projects are identified by the community and not by Duke students and faculty. And this is all accompanied by this activity we call critical reflection. So the process of taking time to reflect not just on what you're doing in DukeEngage, but why it matters and what it means going forward so that it can really be a transformative experience. So that's what DukeEngage is at a very high level.
Thank you, Kristen. So this is a graphic. We want to really give an overview of the last 15 years of DukeEngage as a longstanding program at Duke. And so this is actually our 16th summer that we're going into. And so as you can kind of see, cumulatively, there have been 5,100 students who've completed a DukeEngage program in 85 countries we've logged over 1.65 million hours of work with 600 plus community organizations in 6 continents and in 46 US cities. And so this just gives a brief overview insight into all of the work that DukeEngage has done over the course of these 15, 16 years. And so it's really, really exciting to kind of see broadly. But more so, we want to ask the question, what is DukeEngage really? And we like for you all to think about this. It's Duke faculty-led programs. We have approximately 20 or more programs that will be leading this upcoming summer. And so it's a collection of group programs led by faculty members with a cohort of approximately 8 to 12 students in each group. Each program is 8 weeks long. So it's an 8-week course program that you'll be completing over the summer if you're applying and accept it. It's full-time work with a partner organization, a nonprofit. Plus you will be spending that whole course of that time in reflection and doing cultural enrichment. So all of the cultural enrichment activities that you'll be participating in helps to give context to the social issue that you're addressing over the course of the program. And then you're doing full-time work in accordance with that collaboration piece. It's fully funded, meaning that your basic costs will be covered. By basic costs, we mean flights, room and board, transportation. And so usually you can think about housing that is comparable to that of a college student, college dorm. So something like that. Each program is a little different, but that's what their typical accommodation will be equivalent to. And if you are on financial aid, your summer earnings requirement will actually be waived. So that's something that we want you all to know. Additionally, we believe that to be prepared to do these programs and to be and get able to engage fully and ethically, we want students to participate in a series of seminars in the spring that really gives program-specific information around what it means to do a community engagement program through DukeEngage. And so we want to give some development and training around that. And then finally, follow-up. We want you all to think about, we encourage students after completing a program, what their experiences mean. And we ask you all to continue the work that you've learned, whether through community engagement here in Duke, in Durham, whether it's through research or Bass Connections, or some other program that really carries over some of the things that you've learned and taken away from after doing a DukeEngage program.
So to talk about what it's not, starting with that bottom left picture, it's not study abroad, with the main distinction being you're not receiving course credit for DukeEngage. It is an extracurricular or co-curricular, we say, activity. You do, however, receive a notation on your transcript, and some students can use DukeEngage to fulfill a requirement for a major or a certificate that has an experiential requirement. Public policy requires an internship. Global health requires a field experience, for example. There are certificates that require some kind of experience. So if you wanted to use DukeEngage to fulfill an academic requirement, you would talk to that academic department or office and ask them whether DukeEngage or the program or programs that you're considering might be eligible for that. And of course, it can be an avenue to explore academic interests. In fact, we love it when students choose to apply to a DukeEngage program that fits with some ideas they've had about what their interests are and maybe where they might want to go. It's not the only reason to do DukeEngage, but it's a great one. Going up to the top, it's not exactly volunteering in the way that most of us have participated in volunteering earlier on. So, which is usually more of a shorter term interaction or more of a sort of step in and do the job and step away interaction, which can sometimes feel like more of a transaction. You know, I'll do this for you. You know, we're very grateful. But in DukeEngage, there's more of a relationship that's formed between students and the organizations that they're working with. It's also not exactly an internship, or it's not just an internship. Some of our programs do use that word, or the work partner organizations use that word because that's the word they're used to. And so you might be involved in something that feels like an internship, depending on the program you're in during the day when you're doing your kind of full-time work. But DukeEngage is more than most internship programs in that it includes that deep critical reflection component on kind of the larger social issue that the program touches on, and a real focus on immersing yourself in a different culture and community.
So let's talk about eligibility. Students who are eligible to apply are first, second, and third years in good standing, meaning that you're not on any kind of disciplinary or academic probation at the time of the program. Unfortunately, graduating seniors will not be eligible to apply. So you have 3 summers over the course of your Duke tenure at Duke to apply to a DukeEngage program. And so we hope that you have an opportunity to apply and participate in our program. And so if you've been planning to apply, this is a good thing to have in mind. First, second, and third year students who are in good standing. We get asked a lot, when is actually a good time to apply? And other than obviously the application deadline, there is no specific right time between your years to apply. Historically, we've had students after their sophomore year summer, about 50% apply, and then it's been split between those who completed their first year and those who completed their junior year, going into those grade year summers. And so about 25% first years and 25% junior year. And so we invite you all to kind of consider. It's a excellent opportunity. And historically, like I said, it's been split in the middle. And so it's for you all to kind of decide when's the best time for you all to apply. Some evidence shows that students, after they've completed their first year, they feel really excited about applying to DukeEngage, and it really connects them to their community. Others decide to wait a little while because they want to finish their experience more of the land of Duke and really get connected to the life of the community at Duke and finish some of their internships or majors requirements. And so either way, it's a toss up between what might fit best for your situation. So today we have Kaylee Rodriguez. And so she's completed a DukeEngage program in Miami. And so I asked her to come on today to be able to share with you all more intentionally about how she decided to apply to her program, what her process entailed, what her experience was after doing a DukeEngage program, and some takeaways that she actually had after completing a summer of DukeEngage, and the impact that it's had on her and the rest of the trajectory that she had at Duke.
Amazing. Hi, everyone. My name is Kaylee Rodriguez. As Aaron said, I am a senior now, and I did DukeEngage in Miami the summer between sophomore and junior year, which I found was a good spot for me. But again, it really depends on what you're looking for and the types of opportunities you're searching or wanting to explore. So I, at that point, had already declared public policy. This was a public policy program, or at least oriented program. And it was in Miami. And so the way I chose Miami, I'm actually from Miami, which is not what most people choose to do, but I definitely would recommend it. So we were unfortunately in a different time back then. So it was COVID. And so my experience was actually virtual, but I still found it really fruitful. I think there was still a lot of ways to engage and learn and do work. But it looked a little bit different. And so I chose Miami because at that point I already knew the city well, but I wanted to get more involved. I wanted to learn more about just people working in the community and what they were doing, but also some of the problems that were surrounding me that maybe I had never been aware of. So that was really important to me. And so I partnered with Catholic Legal Services, and they focus on immigration law. So they provide pro bono or very low cost services for immigrants who are seeking representation. And so the clients that I got to see their cases, some were facing deportation, others were applying for asylum, some U visa status. So they had been victims of crimes here in the United States and were petitioning for a visa to stay. And so I got to see a variety of cases, all really happening right in my backyard. And so that was definitely eye-opening. My whole family before me were immigrants, and so I felt a personal connection to those stories, and having to read kind of all of the petitions, all of the affidavits that people were writing. So really up close and personal, which is something that I think is unique. Sometimes when you're doing a traditional internship, you're kind of on the sidelines, but here I felt that I was really able to make connections with the community partners I was working with, and that they had a lot of trust in us. And so that's a big responsibility, but also a really cool way to learn. And what else can I say? Oh, so what I took out of it. So I am graduating now as a public policy major. And while I have not decided what I wanted to do post-grad, I know the direction I want to go. And I think DukeEngage really did help with that. So I did immigration law that summer, and then last summer I did environment. And what I'm really interested in is combining the two. So looking at climate refugees and how environmental crisis around the world will impact migration. And so hopefully I can find a way to apply that in the real world, but that was something that allowed me to combine two things I really liked and take away from both experiences.
I love hearing your story, Kaylee, for a lot of reasons. For one, the combination with the migration and environment, how recent is that thought for you?
Probably after this summer. So I had always been like, oh, should I do immigration and more human rights, and then the environment, but they're so intersected, and like they're just like so interconnected. And so I want to explore that a little bit further.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great example of how students often what they experience in DukeEngage kind of resonates with them over many years. It's also, Miami is not maybe the program that people picture when they think about DukeEngage right away. You might think of doing something more exotic, but as Kaylee says, it was really, really valuable to her to participate in a community where she knew the lay of the land and felt a real strong connection. So this summer, we hope to offer between 20 and 25 programs. It's looking like right now. We are just in the last stages of finalizing our program list, and we'll release it soon, as we'll say shortly in terms of the timeline. We strive for almost half of our programs to be in the US, and we may be close to that this year. So we like to remember that our primary responsibility, some of us will be to our home country or home community, and many of us are US long-term residents. So that's important too. You can apply for 2 programs if you like, 1 or 2 programs. Only one can be international. So you can do 1 international and 1 US program, or 2 US programs, or just 1 program. If you apply to 2, you'd be asked to rank your choices. The applications are reviewed by the separate program directors, and so if you were selected by both, you would receive an offer to the one you ranked the highest. The application deadline this year is January 18th, and that's a week after classes start in the spring. So you've got lots of time to explore, and even the holiday break to work on an application if you like. You would be notified about your admission status in mid-February. I know that's important for some of you to know as you're looking at other options. The best way, before we get into more details about the timeline, to stay on top of all of our deadlines and all of our info sessions and events is to sign up for our newsletter. And there's a link to that. Erin, where would they find that?
It's on our site, but I'll put it in the chat before the end of this session so that you all have access to it.
Okay, great.
Hey, thank you, Kristen. So let's talk about program themes. So as we mentioned, there's going to be like 20 to 25 programs that students will be able to apply to. And these are the various themes surrounding the different social issues that our programs are seeking to address. And so you see things like education or engineering, public policy, arts, women, technology. So different programs have different emphases. And so if you're thinking about applying to DukeEngage, this is where we actually ask students to start. You'll have an opportunity to kind of, if you look at our website, there'll be program profiles. I believe currently right now, we have 2022s, but we're finalizing those for the new programs as well as the longer standing programs as well, updating that information. And that's where we hope for you all to begin as you're processing and planning. What kind of program am I looking for? What program do I hope to apply to? And so all of the work placements, all of the cultural enrichment, all of the internship, daily work, all of that will center around these things. So we want you all to have it.
Okay, so what would you do next if you were interested in DukeEngage? Ways to gather information from this point on. Pretty soon on our website, right now on our website, all you'll see is some of the 2022 program descriptions. We're aiming to have the 2023 program descriptions, as I said, online by the first week in November. So by November 8th is our goal. And we'll send out an announcement on that day to those on our email list. But then you'll see hopefully the full roster of programs offered in 2023, and you'll see a really nice detailed program description for each of them. And that's the first place to start. So from those descriptions, you'd be able to really look at what type of work would I be doing in this program? Is it something I really want to do full time? Am I more inclined toward direct work, community work like tutoring or fixing medical equipment, or am I more inclined toward behind the scenes work like policy research or fundraising or social media? You can see who would I be working with. If it's important to you, you can look at how you'd be living in the program, whether it be dorms or homestay. Some of our programs have homestays, and I would have been thoroughly intimidated by that, but all the students who do it come back and say that was the best part of it for them. Some of the programs have more rustic conditions, so something to look at in the description. A few programs have prerequisites like language requirements. I don't think any of them are specific course requirements. It's just sort of a level of fluency that's discretion of the program director. So if you see a prerequisite like that, the best thing to do is to get in touch with the program director and say, here's my situation. You also want to look at the dates pretty carefully because those don't tend to change very much. And we don't allow students to arrive late or leave early or leave in the middle for a family obligation. So you want to make sure you pick a program that works for you. Also, the second bullet there, most program directors will offer their own info sessions. So this is a general one, but we'll have info sessions for most of the specific programs in November, and we'll have that schedule posted by the time we release the program list for 2023. And you definitely want to try to attend the info session for any program that you're interested in, so you can hear things from the horse's mouth, get a sense of how that program director, what their personality is, and what's important to them and how they would run things. Most will have former students in those info sessions too. You can ask to reach out to a former student. You can either ask the program director to put you in touch with someone, or you can ask us. And we will have drop-in advising. So we'll have, I think, 4 sessions. Erin, is that right? 4 or 5?
5.
5, okay. Scheduled before the application deadline. I think they start toward the end of November, and some of them will be virtual over the holidays, but we'll have some drop-in advising for if you want to discuss sort of cross-program questions like, I'm trying to decide between these 2 programs, or, and I can't, and I'm not sure what to do.
Yeah. And drop-in advising is excellent time for you all to connect with other guides, to hear more DukeEngage stories, other than the one you heard from Kaylee. We have other alum that would love to share with you all more intentional information around what their program experience was like and what their summer was like with DukeEngage. So the application process, it consists of 5 short essay answer questions. And so you'd be writing about what you're interested in with a particular program and what you believe you can contribute. Applications are read by program directors, so they will review all the answers that you all submit in your applications. Most PDs will bring in select students for an interview. And so interview invites don't come at the same time. So just be mindful of that. You'll be notified in mid-February, and you'll have about 1 week to commit. So you would have to sign a participation agreement if you are selected to participate in the program. If you withdraw after committing, you've taken another student's spot and have left the organization without any help for that summer. So you won't be eligible to do DukeEngage again. So be mindful of that. To hold on to your spot, you'll need to submit some more things. So pay attention to deadlines. That's why we want you all to make sure you sign up for our newsletters and all the announcements that we make. US citizens and permanent residents will need to supply a copy of your social security card. So you'll need to have that available. And for those who are applying to international programs, if you're accepted into an international program, then you'll have to attend a student health appointment and to receive any prescriptions that you may need before going abroad. So make sure you don't skip out on that. We wouldn't want you all to get sick with anything while going away. Additionally, so that's a part of the interview and registration process. In preparation, as mentioned, we'll have orientation. And so we have what is called the DukeEngage Fordham Foundation Academy. And so each group will meet in these mandatory sessions, in which it'll be a series of 4 seminars this year. Over a course of 4 weeks, we hire preceptors, those who've served as guides, and alum who've applied to precept to help launch you off on your DukeEngage journey. And so you'll have an opportunity. Basically, those sessions will be for you all to think through the ethics of community engagement and social identity, to think about health and risk and safety. And so it's really important. It's mandatory for those who are accepted and admitted into the program. And so it's part of the preparation process. Additionally, you'll have separate program specific meetings with the program director. And so the program director will bring together the cohort of students, usually 1 or 2 times in the spring before going away for the program. And you'll have specific information that you'll need to gather to prepare you for the program in the summer. And so, yeah, so that's what preparation looks like. We want to get you all critically engaging and thinking about what community engagement means, and what is a program like DE do in accordance with that. So.
Okay, so a lot of students ask, and this is the last thing we're going to talk about, so we will have time for your questions here in a moment, but a lot of students do ask, what are you looking for? What, should I do DukeEngage or not? So here's some things to think about. DukeEngage is looking for students who will live up to the commitments they make and live ethically in their community, students who are willing to stretch and challenge themselves just the right amount, not too much. Not taking on too much, and students who are both willing to work hard and be a self-starter when it's appropriate, but also take direction from a supervisor on a team. And students who are ready to practice being curious without passing judgment is an important trait to have, which in order to do that, it's really important to be self-aware, which means being aware of how others view you and having an understanding of your own strengths and weaknesses, and being able to articulate your own beliefs and values. And just as important as it is to be goal-oriented, it is also important to be flexible. Flexible is the key word in DukeEngage, because you just never know what will happen in the real world. I'm sure Kaylee could tell you stories of things that didn't turn out exactly like she was expecting. So that's a big part of DukeEngage as well. And I think that's all from us, right, Aaron? So we're going to open it up to questions. Yeah.
And we'll leave it open for questions. You can go ahead and put some in the chat if you haven't already. And we'll take some time to kind of, we know you have questions, and so we'll get everything going forward.
While they're doing that, because Kaylee, do you have any stories about things that turned out differently than you thought?
Well, yes, one being online, the whole thing, but
yeah.
I think because we were also in a virtual environment, that took a lot of reaching out and taking initiative on tasks. So just because communication and emails, they were really busy. Their office is swamped every day. And so that required us to be somewhat creative. So I remember one time our team, we created short little videos on how to navigate their website and create appointments. And we translated those into Haitian Creole and Spanish, and they were really excited. And that wasn't something that they asked, but just because we had the time and we wanted to do something together as a team, we went for it, and we were able to give them a product. I'm trying to think what else.
Like a very positive example of something that
yeah, that was a positive. I will say, so when I was translating, so part of what I did, because I speak Spanish, I was working a lot with Spanish speaking clients, And oftentimes that meant calling or joining on Zoom and translating. And somehow, sometimes when I would call, people would save my number and continue to call me instead of the attorney that they were assigned. And so that became a little bit of an issue. And we had to shut that down just because I was in no way qualified to offer any advice. But because I spoke the language, they just wanted to speak with me. So that was something I just wasn't expecting, but it didn't turn out to be a problem. I can give also a piece of advice. So when looking at different programs, I think oftentimes our mind jumps to like, oh, where do I want to go the most? Or where are my friends applying to? Or what's the most competitive or least competitive program? But like, put all of that aside and look at what the work that you are going to do, and look at the community partners, research them, because when you are applying, your commitment or interest in a certain field or in a certain project is really important. So you don't want to apply just because you think you're going somewhere that is really fun. You're able to talk a lot more if there's an interview, or at least in your essays, when it's actually something that's meaningful to you or that you find applicable to you in your life.
We get the question about competitiveness a lot, and I'm glad you brought it up in that context, because programs do have different levels of applicants. Often it's because some have been around for a long time, or the program director is really well known or something. Some other programs fly under the radar and are extremely underrated. But you may be the most competitive applicant for the most competitive program if that's the best fit for you. And so that's really how to think about programs, is what's the best fit for me. What questions do you have? This would be a historic occasion if there were no questions.
Yeah, feel free to, if you have questions about programs or deadlines or upcoming dates.
Is your graduation year a factor in admission? Great question. So no, there are no quotas or preference given by DukeEngage as a whole to any particular year. Each program director may have a certain idea of the kind of mix of students that they'd want in their program. I don't know of any who look only at, juniors or even sophomores and juniors. All the program directors I know like a diverse group of students in all different ways. So lots of freshmen do DukeEngage. I got a question here. What are challenges that students face? Kayla, do you want to speak to that? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Sure. So one fun thing also about DukeEngage, so you come back, you get to do things like this and talk with a lot of students. And so while I think maybe the challenges that I face might be different than somebody who's traveling to a new place, I did get to talk to a lot of students about those. So, I mean, one thing is, again, because it's not an internship and it's not volunteer, I think a lot of what the program wants you to do is to think critically and reflect. And that can be challenging because once you leave your bubble, your nucleus, and you go somewhere and you are encountering new things for the first time, first a new place, and then also social issues that maybe you've never seen so up close, or intergroup dynamics that aren't working the best. There's a lot of things, and you're going to have to reflect.
I think
did I cut out?
Yeah, you're cutting out a little bit there.
Am I back?
You're back.
Okay, so I would say that's one of the challenges from what I've heard other people too, especially with programs where you're a little bit more independent is budgeting well. And we talk about that before you go, and planning ahead and managing your time well. So I would say those are some challenges for sure. And because you're with the same people, pretty small groups for a long time, you definitely have to learn how to work together and how to live together, which isn't always super comfortable, but you have practice. You're a freshman and you probably have, or if you were a freshman or a freshman now, you had a random roommate and you figured it out. So yeah.
Couple things I would add to that is, just experiencing a new culture can be, there are sort of waves to that. You come in on a high, but then eventually you get frustrated with some things. So that's a challenge many students work through, even in the US. Most programs would have you cooking for yourself, buying groceries and preparing your own food. And I've talked to lots of students who that's their first experience with having to do that. So a couple of things.
We got a question in terms of short answer application questions. What are some things to avoid with your answers?
And I would just say, there's nothing really to avoid. I think just being really, really genuine is what makes your application stand out. Program directors are really looking for who are you and why are you interested in this program? Tell me about your life, tell me about your story, tell me about your interests. So yeah, there's nothing I would avoid in applications.
Yeah, the best program applications are those that fit well with your interests. If you're able to articulate and communicate what you can contribute, why you're deeply interested and invested in the program, how it intersects with maybe work that you've done, or maybe work that you're looking to do, something that you're studying. So all of those things kind of make your application more compelling, and you're able to communicate that well, not just in writing, but also in the interviews if you're selected for that. Additionally, there was a question in regard to the time commitment for the academy. And so the 4 seminars is just 1 hour that you will be spending a week with your preceptor group, well, 2. And so, yeah, so you'll be able to, because it's an hour and a half to 2-hour session. And so you'll be able to sign up for time slots. We'll have plenty of time slots available, whether from like Sunday to Friday, for students to sign up. And we have our preceptors lead these different student groups, and you'll be able to kind of address those different things that we mentioned earlier.
Yeah, and if I can also add to the essay question, I think one of my tips or a piece of advice to you would be also the point of DukeEngage once you're back is to stay engaged. And so if you can communicate how you plan on doing that, or why, or something that connects to your program that you can do here in Durham or at Duke, I think that would make your application stronger as well.
A nice idea. I had a question about applications being rolling, and they are not rolling. That's right. There is just the one deadline. Program directors, I think, have the ability to look at applications when they're submitted, but most wait, and as we all do, until the time when they're all ready, and then make their decisions within about a 3-week period. And program directors would not be able to view whether you'd applied to 2 programs or not, much less which order you had ranked them. So they would just see your application. And I'll go ahead and address, this is another question along those lines. Students will ask, can I use the same answers on 2 different program applications? And that's up to you, sure. The first question is, why are you interested in this program? So I imagine that would be different, but there will be questions that you can answer the same, and program directors won't be judging you for that.
Yeah. And we give you all this information ahead of time, so you have adequate time to map out your answers to some of these questions. So applications will open on November 8th, 7th, 8th. And so you'll have an opportunity before the deadline, at least 2 months, to be able to kind of think through what programs you're interested in. So don't wait till the last minute. That would be my advice, because the applications take a little time for you to think through, why you're interested, why you're invested in the program, what you believe you'll be able to contribute. So that's some advice around that.
Yeah, that's the thing to avoid in your application questions.
What else?
I don't have anything else. I think, if students want to contact us, they can always do that at DukeEngage@duke.edu. We read that email daily. You could probably look up Kaylee and find her email on the Duke website if you'd like to talk to her, or you can reach out to program directors, as we said, and they'll put you in touch with other former students.
Thank you all for joining our session today, and we look forward to hearing more from you. So feel free to apply when they open up. Thank you all.